Be sure to subscribe and like our channel. Welcome. I'm here with Mondo. Mondo today. Zach will join us in a little bit. Obviously, all the work we've done to pimp our store is full of customers. So Zach's handling that right now, so I can have the Rainbow Show in live time. So Mondo has been around the Southwest as a celebrated elder of the community, teaching results-oriented magic to anybody who would listen in the Southwest. from Christian groups to Wiccan groups to occult stores, anybody who would listen is talking about results-oriented magic. Tends to focus a little bit into chaos magic, so it was sort of a real elder of the chaos magic scene back in the day when Jason Black and Dr. Hyatt were running around. You know who they were running around with? This guy, Mondo. And he's been involved with the OTO and various other Satanic, Luciferian organizations at different times. He's kept up his sorcery ritual magic. He tends to lean in towards Norse, Santeria, Voudon, and some ceremonial magic, but he incorporates all the Luciferian aspects to it. Sometimes a self-proclaimed atheist, or at least agnostic, depending on which day you catch it, but that's typical for we or us chaos magicians. But what he is consistently talking about everywhere is results over mystical experiences, although we can argue about whether mystical experiences can get results. And today what we're going to really talk about is adversarial magic, or Nemesis magic, as I had to come up with a nice name for the article that I got contracted to write for the Become a Living God people. So if you want to hate me, you know, my hate mail address is at gmail.com. But I promise my article won't be like poetry or fluff. It's going to be actually real. And we're going to talk about that, what adversarial magic means, and maybe get into some Gnostic concepts today, or maybe some other concepts today. So welcome to the show, Mondo. You are also a podcaster. I forgot to mention that, of which you have your own podcast. You're like a guest podcaster. And we're going to put each other in the hot seat today. Yeah. So that said, you've been doing a magic a long time. And kind of, I think one of the things that we share and maybe we criticize a lot of is the kind of lack of results in a lot of magic. I mean, I was kind of joking with you earlier today, and I often joke about, you know, like TikTok and the lack of results. But this has been something we've been saying from the 90s, is that there's a lot of people do a lot of magic and they never get results. And they think that's okay. It's just, they think that's just the way it is.
Yes. I have a very close friend I've been associated with on this level for many years, who I asked him once, I said, well, why do you do magic? And he says, for wisdom. He wants knowledge and wisdom, which to me means gnosis. You know, I go with the old Greek definition more or less. But
right.
That's what he's into. And to me, it just, okay, knowledge or wisdom, illumination, maybe a divination to figure out what I need to do to get that enchantment across the finish line for a result.
But I mean, in a way, it's kind of like, what exactly is wisdom? Wisdom, like true gnosis or true individual gnosis, and wisdom, how does that actually change your life? Or is it just an escapist fantasy in some cases that you're just complying with a sort of Christian mind view? And that's just, what is it wisdom about being a good person? But what does cosmic wisdom actually mean? What if you have the insight and gnosis that the cosmos is a horrifyingly ambivalent place? I mean, that's the whole Cthulhu mythos in a nutshell, right? The cosmos is entirely does not care about your existence. What if you get that from gnosis? But no one ever talks about that. That's not the narrative after gaining wisdom. There's a certain narrative that comes out of the wisdom, I don't know, story. It's a certain, it seems to have a certain pattern and certain expectations and a certain behavioral expectational roles. I mean, how is this any different than having a profound drug experience and then justifying your behavior changes on the drug experience?
Right.
But that's
Well,
actually not. But if you really look at the spiritual traditions outside of the, you know, modern take on them, the
yeah.
be a good person, what does they say about alchemy, or what does Eastern say about a bodhisattva? They all can get results, real results. Alchemy basically says the minute you achieve a level of soul alchemization in standard, classic, even hermetic alchemy, you literally will see your life improve almost right then and there, like in a magic, not in a magical way. That sounds so trite when we're talking about this stuff, but I mean, but it's almost like naturally there is a milestone in your physical reality that instantly would change. Like things would instantly change, that your whole expressed being on this sphere, on the Malkuth sphere, or on this plane would be different. Like you would have life changes immediately. Like if you get to the enlightenment stage, like you could pull off healings that seem impossible, like that defy logic. There is a component to actualized result magic and every step of wisdom that somehow gets missing when we're talking about this now.
Yeah. For me, being very practical when it comes to this type of thing, one result, excuse me, one result leads to another primarily. There's often results that come from the intended result, which we didn't really account for, which are actually more beneficial than the intended result. I mean,
Well, I
we've
mean, I
found,
think that's also a big part of this. This is where I would have issue with the I don't want to say modern grimoire
right.
books, but the modern sigil grimoire books, or I have my own issues with those books because, well, where did you get those sigils? And
Yeah,
as experienced magicians know, you could put energy hooks, which often that's what's
right,
going on.
right.
Um, but it's the same with TikTok. It's like, okay, you do the spell, but you don't have, even if you did everything correctly, you don't have a context for the other fallout, which is not necessarily bad fallout either.
No,
Like one wealth spell can lead to 5 wealth results,
yes.
uh, uh, which is a little different than just doing one spell. And often, like, even the struggling against your using the magic to struggle against your own limitations can lead to thousands of results just by being in the fight.
Yeah, that's why a lot of times we want that pinpoint. We want that pinpoint intention to get a specific. I don't like to say a specific result. I more or less think of a specific set of results, because usually you get more than one. I mean, even in what we would consider a fail, sometimes there's a great success in the results that we actually obtained. Because I haven't ever not gotten a result. I mean, either it's a fail as a result. I mean,
Well, that goes back to the NLP adage.
right.
There's no real failure. There's just information,
Yeah,
uh,
that's
and
right.
there's just
That's right.
information.
And
I
I agree
mean,
with Bandler on that. Yeah, I agree with him.
like once you get past the basics, I would agree with the notion that, I mean, obviously, if you can't focus, you can't get the prerequisite focus down. Um, can't stay in the rituals long enough to make any, really kind of get the buzz going. We all know what it is.
Right.
It's then maybe your rituals could fail, but actually for everyone who actually has got some basic techniques of either transgeneration focus or just mind training, I would say I tend to agree with you that the ritual almost always works. It just doesn't always produce any sort of results that you would expect.
Yeah. It goes back to that old anecdote. Okay, I enchanted for $1,000. Well, then my favorite aunt died and left me $1,000. You know, I mean, you know, um, so there's desired results and undesired results, and then there's unaccounted for results. Um, so yeah, I mean, to me, it's all about results. Okay, so even when I've done illumination rituals, uh, usually, uh, yeah, maybe get spaced out. You know, just to get spaced out in the what do we call it now, in either the excitatory stage or the inhibitory stage. And I believe there's also a middle stage, kind of like in trance. You know, you have light trance, you have
Yeah.
medium, you know, and then you have deep trance. And so for me, sometimes the the medium trance got me to a very deep trance, and that was an unintended consequence. Which, if I'm on my game, I'm going to utilize that. I'm going to utilize that. I mean, everything for me in my work is there to be utilized. It's about economy in that sense. You know, like building on in wealth magic, it's really correct. I mean, one of the things I found out in wealth magic, if I don't have a consciousness of wealth, if I don't have a mindset of wealth, now there's different ones too. There's wealth in I have a really rich and productive life, you know, emotionally and socially and all those types of things. And then there's the material part of it. Well, sometimes the result is the former more than the latter, and it makes the latter happen later. You know, I mean, that's I just really I love the practice. I do it every day. You know, I practice magic every day. There isn't a day that, you know, that doesn't go by where I'm not doing something. Not doing something, even if it's just passing by my house spirit, you know, and directing it, you know, to do something, or utilizing some of the other uh, ongoing enchantments that I have, you know, those type of things. Getting into a deep state to do divination. And I really think that divination requires a very deep state for it to be effective. I think divination is where a lot of people fall off you know, I read my cards today and it said, you know, said I was going to be restricted. You know, I got the devil card, so I was going to be restricted in a certain type of social or financial or even sexual bondage. You know, like, okay, you know,
Well, I mean, and this gets to kind of what the show is, you know, titled Adversarial Magic or Nemesis Magic, is that when you start off as a later when you're 70, like you are,
right,
you know, like everything is a little bit easier because you kind of built up a mass of workings and kind of stuff like
yes,
that. But when people first start out, it is literally like the world itself is against you as a magician.
yes,
Like it seems like, yes, when you get to 70, you basically tell the world, hey, fuck off, right?
that's
Basically,
right.
like you're my bitch now. But when you're first starting the magician, that's not what happens.
No,
Every single thing tries to prevent your progress, magically speaking, or at least that was my experience. Every
right,
single thing tries to dim your star at every single thing. Right? You do magic here, you might get this magic to work, and then 10 people will tell you how foolish you're being at a social attack, right? You
right. Yeah,
know,
that's right. That's right.
or even though you got results from it, or
Right,
you know, and you might get this benefit and then these obstacles come your way, like you get sick,
right.
and you have to deal with them, like, or you successfully heal your mom, so she gets out of the hospital and doesn't die, and
Right.
then you lose your job, right? It's like, and it's pretty consistent. Every magician I know kind of has this series of uh, almost like the environmental or the, I don't want to say the world, because it's maybe from a Gnostic point of view, the false world or the demiurge tries to dim
Yeah.
your star as a magician to
Right.
stop your progress at every
Right.
stage. So it
Well,
sounds like you had an experience too,
well,
back in the younger days.
yeah. Well, even now to a certain extent that but I watch this very closely. I watch my own psychological states. Uh, you know, and that came from, trying to utilize the wrong state to effect a result. Like getting real angry. This is just an example. It's not something I do every day, but you get very angry, or I get really angry or resentful about what someone has done, and then I set out to take revenge, and it's a heated emotional state, which I don't find in my personal workings is conducive to the result that I really want. So I have to emotionally engineer myself, into resultant states. Uh, and early on, I mean, the first 10 years, it was pretty tough. I mean, I got in my own way a lot. I tripped over my own, pardon my French, but I tripped over my own shit, a lot. And it it was a rough go, because I would look at this and I'd say, well, I did this and this and this, and then this and this and this happened, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And then I began to sit back after a lot of experiences and go, wait a minute, what were those results? And how could I utilize that? And actually, a lot of times I had to find out what it was deep in here that I really wanted. What was my true desire? Like creating the old alphabet of desire.
Mm-hmm.
When I would sit down and illustrate those different states, it told me a lot. Told me a lot. Sometimes I had to look at the goddamn book that I did 6 years later.
Well, I mean, one of the things though that's very interesting is because we're talking about, the adversary, or not, in a silly sort of, here's Satan, but the world
Mhm.
kind of being adversarial. But
Yes.
one of the things that you're bringing up that I'd agree with is that the world itself is reflecting sort of stuff that you don't understand until
Right.
later, that you can
Right.
capacity understand it. Like a
Right.
lot of people, when they're kind of getting those kind of results, they either run back to Christianity, which is
Yes.
possible.
Yes, they
They
do.
get angry at the gods,
That's true.
curse the gods, curse the spirits, which again, that's, I don't know how that's helpful. I mean, because what we're saying is, like, as you're making progress, you're manifesting this part of yourself, or you're manifesting this desire, but you get 5 not desired things
Right.
that, if you really thought about it, were still part of you. Like they were
Right.
still they were still obstacles or issues that
Right.
were probably in the way for what your result was there.
Right. And I think that had to do with states, with state management. You know, uh, I spent a lot of time in the last 15 years working with states, creating states, uh, collapsing states, replacing them with more creative, productive state NLP stuff, right? And
Yep.
to me, NLP, the way I practice it is part of my magical practice, uh, and state management is a huge part of that. Uh, like in Satanism, which I still like Levian Satanism a lot. I mean, the 9 satanic statements, they mean quite a bit to me, most of them. When it comes down to the revenge and kicking somebody's ass, magically, I don't really do that so much anymore, because what I learned was most people have the liabilities that cause them to do harmful actions, that those usually, just catch up with them in the laws of cause and effect. That's why people talk about karma. Karma doesn't mean shit to me. It's cause and effect, is what most people mean by karma. If I rob enough banks, I'm probably going to get caught.
Well, I think most people, when they say karma, they think
Yeah.
there's a sky daddy that'll punish them.
Yeah, they do.
But it is mostly cause and effect. Like, and the problem with most curses, the big problem with most curses is that while you can use anger to power them, you have to let the anger go at the time of the ritual,
Yeah.
which takes a level of discipline, of emotional discipline, to
Yes.
release all that negative energy
At one shot.
and not go back to it. Like, it's not like once you do a curse, if you're really being honest about it,
Right.
you've either done the curse or you're still in the process of being angry about the curse, right?
Right.
Like, if
And
you've done the curse, you can't do the curse and you could still be angry, but
right.
not really. Like, if you've done the curse and ordered the universe to take retribution, you have taken the steps that you're either done with it and it's out of your
Right.
head, or you're not. And most
Right.
people, what they really like is the fantasy of vengeance, right? Because that's pleasurable. But
Yeah.
real curses and real entropic magic at your adversaries is like a ninja. Like, you are literally like, bam, and then you don't have the pleasure of being mad about it anymore.
It's
And I know it
stealth.
sounds weird. Yeah, it sounds totally
It's
weird
total
to
stealth.
say you don't have the pleasure of being you can't have the pleasure of being mad at it, mad anymore.
No.
But that's it in a nutshell. Like, being mad because somebody slighted you is often pleasurable. Well, I mean, nowadays we can look at politics and see lots of people get pleasure of this. Like, they get mad, but as long as those people have space in your head, and you try to do a curse, it's not so much that maybe you don't even have a moral issue with it, but certainly it's probably going to backflow to you because you're still connected.
That's
You're
right.
still connected to the energy, the mindset, the whole vibe, the anger. If anger's your fuel, once you use it, you have to be done with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going back into the thing that you tied to the curse work, which then, from an information model of magic, pretty much allows it to basically flow back to your subconscious and energy system and, well, basically just screw you. I mean,
I think Jane Mansfield learned
what?
that the hard way with Tony LaVey.
Yeah.
She learned it the hard way. She kind of pissed him off, and we know what happened to her. That kind of thing. I mean, I guess you could accelerate. Sometimes you do something to accelerate somebody's own self-destructiveness in such a way where it doesn't destruct other people who have benefit, to you or to that person, or, so I pretty much gave up on that not gave up, but changed the way I do those kinds of things when I do them, which is infrequently. Just like, the guy steps on your path, you say, excuse me, you've intruded in my area. Then when he does it again, you, figuratively speaking, knock the hell out of him, sometimes for me, the first time is a good warning signal to get the heck out of the way, so that doesn't happen again. Because if I was going to go around fragging people that have done me wrong, so to speak, my whole life would be consumed with that. If I'm in the victim mode, I think the point is there that I'm getting from you is not to get into a victim mentality, and then the anger and the resentment becomes an adrenaline booster.
Well, yeah. Isn't it? It becomes a different type of obstacle, right?
That's an
And we can
addictive
actually,
pattern.
right. There's lots of people who kind of develop a skill for magical cursing, and then they blow up. And I
Yeah.
think the reason is it sort of goes back to the state analogy, or the fact that it's karma analogy, which is a bad analogy, but it sort of goes back to the point that they kind of overwhelmingly start investing identity in their
Right.
cursing.
Well, then
And at
there's
the point that creates a whole another set of obstacles in the world around them.
right. Right. And then there's the thing about doing good all the time, just doing good. Well, like for instance, healing someone. Well, by healing them, you could actually cause them to get into more pain. Things could wind up worse for them. I had a colleague that told years ago. I had a colleague that said, "Hey, sometimes the best curse on someone is to heal them." and,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, right? Because, well, I mean, first of all, one of the best curses that I have, like, or adversarial moves that you can make towards another person, is to bring about changes which cause them to be enlightened.
yeah, yeah,
Anyone who goes through the magical process of alchemy or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it
right,
knows damn well that that's a path of pain.
yeah,
That basically
yeah,
means that you pay for every step forward. Every step forward, you've paid in blood, or you've paid in tears, or effort, or one of the things. It isn't like you just kind of, to go back to the wisdom analogy, just get wisdom. It doesn't happen. So to wish
no,
somebody, seriously, to wish somebody enlightenment,
no. Pain
it's
can
seriously
precede healing.
right. It's sources. You'd think, well, that's not a curse. That's not an entropic magic,
No,
except you're forcing them to get out of a place of inertia into a place of motion, whether or not they want to or not, which creates a whole series of the type of obstacles that we've been describing.
yeah, yeah, and that's the whole thing about what I liked about LaVeyan Satanism was he used to say, "Well, what is Satanism? What is everything that's not Christianity and those associated philosophies? It's everything that's not." And so that appealed to my resentful, rebellious nature at the time.
Right, right, right. I'm not Christian. F it, right? Everything else.
Right, right. Ah, there's that.
Yeah, Zach.
Hey, yes, I walk in right onto F Christianity, right? That's when I walk in.
Well, I should say, just because we're saying that, I am going to write a Christian magic book soon.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. It is fun work. It is fun
Christian
work.
candle magic book.
Well, I mean, look at
Rocking out the
Catholicism.
songs.
Look at Catholicism.
Well, I mean, there's suburban Catholicism,
Yeah,
and then there's Hispanic Catholicism,
right.
or Eastern European Catholicism, and those two probably look similar, but very different than suburban Catholicism.
Well, a lot of those have a lot of syncretism in them. You know, they've co-opted or appropriated their gods into saints and, things like that.
Exactly.
And it's been very effective for them. It allowed them to practice their indigenous or native religions under the pretext, well, this is what God wants. or, or geez, Santa Barbara, Chongo is looking out for me,
There's probably more psalms for destroying your enemies that are used by Christians than anything else.
I'll bet you. I will bet.
There's more psalms for enemy destruction than getting laid, for sure.
I'll bet you guys have these books. Any books by Anna Riva? Remember Anna Riva?
Two Jew guys from Brooklyn.
Is that who Anna Riva was?
Yeah, I think so.
Andrieh was
That's what I
supposed to
heard.
be a Filipino woman, but I think you're right. I mean, it's kind of like the Necronomicon, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. It was so. Someone can correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure historically Anne Riva was two Jewish guys from
Sure,
Brooklyn.
sure. Great books. Lots of great spells. Lots of great. I did, back in the early days, um, when the Wiccan groups I was with were more religious, than they were magical. Um, and I mean, it was, you didn't call upon the gods to do magic for you, even hardly at all. But it was more and I'm like, fuck this. I need to get something out of this shit.
That's why sort of we get to this. Um, I almost view this the spirituality without results as another adversarial sort of nemesis thing that dims the stars of would-be mystics or magicians. I think it actually hurts people. Like, I honestly do. I mean, this is just my opinion. And the reason I think it hurts people is because you get to this escapist mindset when magic and communing with the very spirits, even if you're not in a non-atheistic paradigm, like a
Right,
total spiritual paradigm, it removes the immediacy of working with those spirits. It becomes it becomes another sort of block in the chain of blocks. The spirits aren't here with us. There's something you escape to. So of course you might not get any results to. You call the goddess to escape into ecstasy instead of bringing ecstasy here, right?
right.
Like um, instead of instead of bringing luck here, you go out to spiritual experiences that are out there, way out there, somewhere, and it cheats people. It's like a thief because they could bring that here.
Right.
They could bring that to their lives, even from a purely theosophical point of view. They could bring that here. They could share that in this world. Like the ecstasy of being with the goddess could be here, imminent. Their life could bring joy into their very life, right? The threads of that energy and information
Right.
could be threaded. But once you say you wouldn't think of doing magic, because it's too holy, because what you're doing is too holy, you've
Yeah.
created You've literally created a nemesis between you and the spiritual world.
Right.
You've created a huge adversarial leap that can never happen here. It has made the world a more hellish place.
That's why it was such a great breath of fresh air when I got exposed to in the realm of invocation modeling, which is really Milton Erickson, and
Yep.
you pick this God form or God forms, make a composite of God forms, and take on that composite. That composite becomes another series of states for me to access. Uh,
Right.
and
Which
that's to me that's kind of where that leads. I mean, it's like, okay, so I want to be this week. I want to be real Martian, right? Well, okay. So I look at all the martial type God forms like that, the assertive God forms, maybe leaving out the aggressors to a great extent. How, yeah, because I'm aggressive by nature, but um, you know, bringing in and taking on the characteristics that are going to benefit what I have in mind to do. And that to me, that's where invocation is very helpful. Not necessarily I believe in the God. I might, just for that hour and a half or 30-minute span, right? Totally immerse myself in the complete belief of that. However, taking on those characteristics is a great, gosh, it just works so well. I mean, and then being able to anchor those states and pull them up when you need to,
yep, all
or have a trigger for the anchor. Yeah.
hardcore NLP techniques.
Oh, it is, but it's
Yep.
Basically,
works with Magick really well. I think. Um,
this gets to the point where, right? So even if you were doing like goddess worship, why aren't you anchoring the states of the qualities that you associate
sure.
with the goddess? Like if that's the ideal you're moving towards. So we get into this meta kind of, and this is part of a lot of modern occultism, where there's this meta belief that put, again, so the act of Miltonian hypnosis or NLP states, or, as we like to call it, 5-minute invocations, right?
Yep.
All of those things have basically no idea of the separation or the obstacle of the separation that you're putting there. They essentially assume that either the gods maybe aren't real and we're just making it all up, which is okay, or you can make another assumption that they are real, but it doesn't matter anyway because their mind can just connect. Or they can connect to random chimera that we make. It doesn't really matter what you say. Still, the obstacle isn't there of the separation that kind of infects a lot of occult material now.
I think when you're calling a god form, okay, and I can make this very analogous to Goetia. When you're calling up a spirit out of Goetia, that spirit was probably a god at one point that was demonized.
Yep.
And, that's, I always like the old Pete Carroll thing, for all the gods and demons are we, so my beef there always was, okay, if I call up this god, well, what composite of other gods is that god? One. Two, how many thousands or millions of people have injected their own states into that god to where now that god could be problematic. Whereas I might need to, if I want to get really deep into that particular god form, I might want to access its to access it as it is today. Here's what is this god like today if I want to use it. Well, shit, it's a lot easier to make your own guy. In my opinion. I mean, it's just, a lot easier. And, you could splice them. You can gene splice them, so to speak. You put a little bit of this one and a little bit of that one, a little bit of this, a little bit of me, or whoever I'm working with. Boom, there it is. There's the new god form or entity or whatever you want to call it. We used to run into a lot of problems with what we called OPE, other people's entities. And yeah. So I don't know. That's just one topic there, but I think you get little Billy Bob, and he goes and he buys a couple Wicca books, and they got some rituals in them, and he's getting all fired up. Hey, it's exciting. Well, it is exciting, and he gets all excited, and he gets into it, and maybe he's enchanting for something. He doesn't realize really what he is doing, and he gets a totally different result, and it's like, this doesn't work. I didn't want Grandma to die. I just wanted the $1,000. So it's,
Well, I think that comes from, in a way, it comes from a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
Of causality. Like, if you have a job where you can go overtime, is your grandma going to die? Maybe, but possibly the more likely mechanism is that you get overtime, right? But if you're asking for that type of money and there's no opportunities for it,
right,
the opportunities come. It isn't so intelligent as what I think. I'm just speaking conjecture. I don't think it's so much intelligent there as it is systems, right? Well, what's the weakest place in the system to make this happen?
Right.
And we're in the system. Like, now, whether or not we say that the system, like I was arguing before, has internal checks and limitations and sort of works against the magician, that we can argue. But the fact is, when a result hits, it's going to look, it's not that it's looking for it, it's like the weakest link or the fulcrum breaks of whatever is the easiest way for your intention to hit the whole systems of reality that you currently exist in.
Right. Right.
So
And,
like, so asking for a girlfriend, and
yeah.
not going outside, how does that work?
Probably, well,
No.
might find yourself calling the
Or a
local
boyfriend, depending on what you want, right? Like, yeah, all of a sudden, your mom kicks you out of the house or
Right.
something.
Right.
You're like, well, how did this happen? Well, one was a prerequisite of the other.
Yeah.
And so the
Right.
universe, the weakest chain was to make this chain of possibilities start to manifest.
And that's where I think a lot of the the so-called magicians that are amagical, they don't want to do much magic because it's just too risky. And when they've done it in the past, they didn't get really good results. I think of Dave Mustaine from Megadeth and his experiences with magic, and he and I had a discussion after which he basically, I think, had to go to the bathroom for a minute. But anyway,
Uh,
I like his guitar
not
playing.
just bad.
Yeah.
Always Dave Trapped himself. Nice.
But at any rate, though, a lot of people, they go into this all wet, and they wound up getting rode hard and put away wet. And so,
The magical path, I'm convinced the magical path is far more grinding than anyone wants to admit. Because there's the magical there's the magical lifestyle, which we see
Yes.
on TikTok. There's the magical Twitter existence.
I got to go and look these people up, man. So I can go on TikTok and find people doing like 30-second rituals.
Hashtag
Yeah,
witch
you
day.
absolutely can.
Hashtag
No
witch day.
shit. Oh boy.
But that said,
I got to do it.
but that said, because there's the idea of the witch or the magician, and then there's the process, and the process is actually pretty grinding, and no one wants to do that. It
Right.
I am convinced. We're sort of talking about that. I'm convinced that continuously, every step you take, you're going to manifest issues for the next step you have to take.
Right.
Like,
Agree.
if every single result that you get brings about the results that you have to get in the near future, or by changing one aspect and changing reality in a way to force it to give you a result, it necessitates you to either alchemize or get other results because you broke other parts of the set of systems that you're currently in. And if you want to fix those become challenges that you have to go and then fix. And the real problem that we're talking about from a hardcore Buddhist standpoint, but not a westernized Buddhist standpoint, is detachment. People get too attached to their current existence when the process of magic demands constant change and constantly facing new nemesis, constantly facing adversarial obstacles that pop up as a result because you've changed one variable in the system and you have to go change other variables in the system. But the truth is the opposite version of that, the blue pill, as it were, no magic at all, is even worse, because then you're at the mercy of all these obstacles that society places on you without any means to move past them. Really, it's like being the Walking Dead.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Or Walking Wounded. It's so. I always like the armchair magicians because to me the classic character there was this guy would argue with you and say, "Well, hey man, I was out there and I blasted off 7 sigils before dawn. What the fuck were you? Oh, pardon me. What were you doing? We were getting hard and getting her done, right?" And then the guy's, "Well, oh no, I sit right here in my chair and I do all the magic in my mind and I get exactly what I want." Okay, I'm not going to argue with them. I'm not going to say, well, show me, But I have a hard
I would
time.
ask.
I would.
I would
I
ask.
would.
Well, am I going to take that person seriously? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, you
I
could,
would seriously ask to see what things they were
sure,
asking for. I mean, maybe it's a better method of studying magic, and that's cool. But I would ask, yeah.
we had a good showstopper once doing a class, and I wasn't moderating a class, but we were doing a class, the group I was with. And guy comes in and says, well, I just want to check you people out, see if you really are magical. So what do you mean? We're like, well, I mean, can you flick your finger and make it go like a cigarette lighter? Can you light candles in a room just by your thought? And he kind of got ignored. The subject got changed and he left. So, and so a lot of people think of
But
it that
I mean that mentality
right,
right there, that mentality, that expectation is an imposed belief upon
right,
magicians from an external agency. It is an external adversarial obstacle. Like it is literally an obstacle to belittle and to control. And
right.
it is not an obstacle that
That's
magicians would
right.
come up with themselves.
That's
If
right.
you want to see movies about magicians by magicians, go look at Alan Moore's stuff. Okay. That's a little bit more about where does this happen. But you know what? Hollywood isn't the friend of the magician any more than Hollywood is the friend of the fairies, or any of these other religions that
Nope.
they get belittled. Because anyone thinks that the fairy craft, when we talk about them, like, these are little like Tinkerbell fairies that have no
No.
teeth, the same as magicians. By putting the bar up there,
Right.
they're sure, maybe there's a couple people in the world that might be able to do that. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe with a whole lifetime of practice, but it put the bar so high that it's unattainable for anyone to be magical. Except when you put the bar a little lower consistently. So I consider that belief sort of a belief that is in opposition to any magic at all, as
Right.
in you put the belief a little lower to get the same threshold that social
Well,
scientists get, and all of a sudden magic seems to be way more reasonable and possible.
how about the old Crowley definition of magic? Causing change in accordance with will. Now, change we can define pretty readily. However, when we look at will,
Gets a lot tougher.
I think so, because sometimes we may think our will is this or that. And actually, when we go deep inside, probably after a magical experiment went a different direction than we intended, and that's helpful because in many cases I've discovered what my will was, and it wasn't what my intention supposedly was.
I mean, that kind of gets to what I was saying, that every single working produces obstacles
Yeah,
or adversarial currents that you have to figure
yeah,
out, because they're revealing, or you might even get the result and the currents are revealing other things that demand other sort of growth patterns, like
they do.
that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, it happens frequently. It happens
Which is
frequently.
honestly the reason I don't understand why people who are mystics, right? Who literally, for the most part, preach a world detachment viewpoint,
Right,
are so scared to do magic.
right.
Because what are they saying is that they're so attached to the world that they're unwilling to risk any changes to the world. And their whole spiritual philosophy is one of detachment from the world. Shouldn't they be doing the most magic, right? Like to incur the most changes, because they're not attached to the world. There's nothing here that should
Is real.
necessarily matter. Right.
Reminds me of llamas and their tulpas. I love the llamas. I shouldn't say anything, but I love them. Oh,
There you
I
go.
can stand up my back.
There we go.
Yeah, I love lumps. So
that said, you've been doing magic for a long time. So I even
yeah,
extended a long time.
yeah.
So if people were midstream or even in sort of maybe not quite in the beginning, what advice would you give them at this point? Maybe they're past the first book.
Okay, okay. My experience shows get out there and do it. Get some ideas. Write about it. Um, you know, I don't think you can meditate too much. I meditate, 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 meditate. You know, work with trance. If I was starting out all over again, that would be the first thing that I would do is effect and manage trance because that's where I get my shit done. But it took me years to figure that out. So I would say study, practice, 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 study, practice. That's been my experience. I learned from practice. That's why I don't call myself a magician. I call myself a practitioner. I know it's real NLPE, but
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, it's
it's
all right.
okay. Whatever you want to label yourself is just fine, or not label. It's just fine. Yeah, map
So
is not.
what would you say to somebody who they did their first couple of rituals and it blew up in their face?
Oh,
And what do you say to them? Because we're past the first book, right? What do you say?
right.
What do you say to those people who are willing to give up on this? Because maybe it didn't work the way they thought.
First thing I'm going to ask them is I'm going to have to interview them. The first thing I'm going to ask them is what what did you want to get out of that? What did you want to do? And what did you get? Didn't get what I wanted. Well, how did you do it? Oh, well, what state were you in? What state of mind were you in? You know, what was in place in you mentally to push out there into the subconscious mind to get the work done? I still ascribe to the belief that, we do this out here and it goes back here. And that's where it gets done 24/7. That's my belief on that. Now you can say, well, what goes in here comes out here and is connected out here. Okay, I'm not, I'm not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. However, I got to really assess that. I mean, I do this every damn day. I mean, okay, so what did I do? Well, what happened? Okay, well, what do I really want? Well, what do I really want? I see. That's what I have to find out for me. What the hell do I really want, and what is that going to take? Man, that's not a ABC formula. I'm sorry. In most cases, as we know this. I mean, I wish I could. My mentor taught me, hey, let's go in the parking garage. We'll power up and watch all the car alarms go off. And we did that. That was real impressive to me, boy. I was in awe because, see, I think an important thing for our new folks is get some results. I mean, even if it's like so obvious, even if it's like a no-brainer result, get some results. And then when you get them, if you have that sense of awe, key in on that. It's a very important state in moving forward. So I would say, are you in this for the short run or the long run? Well, I want to get the short run. Okay, well, then maybe you better hire somebody. A long run. Okay, so this is going to be work. I don't want to tell them it's going to be a lot of work. It's really hard. You're going to get I'm not going to tell them that because they are. They're going to get frustrated. Haven't we all been frustrated at some point to a certain extent?
Like I said, I mean, I think often magicians are an adversarial state to the world. The world
Right.
does not want to change. You
No.
do not want to change.
No.
The impulse, not of the magician as the lifestyle accessory. That's what I call it. But the real magician is another agent of change,
Excuse me.
and either in themselves or in the world, in which case the
Right.
world has its own defenses and you have your own defenses. The other parts of you that are not the magical parts of you also are not too fond of change, to
Right.
use this, even the NLP analogy, let alone a spiritual one. There's parts of you that are not fond of change. The world is not generally fond of change. Uh, and if you're going to invoke change that changes the fabric, even a localized manner to other
And
people, it will be adversarial. Like as in
yes.
you
Yes.
you
And
have to treasure those moments of awe
mm,
because
yes.
and wonder because the seams at which those moments of awe happen are the kind of fuel that usually actually mostly keep most real magicians going, like, because otherwise they're trying to make a change. They have these negative effects. They try to make these change. They have kind of unintended pressure in this points because nobody wants things to change. Everyone wants things to be exactly the same.
Right.
um,
And they're never the same.
yeah.
I mean, well, they're almost never the same. I don't like to, do the never same. You're right. Like that other cliche. The only thing that doesn't change is that everything is pretty much always changing, right?
Right. It's always changing. So I mean, like, for a magician, whether or not you believe in the information model or psychological model, you are all, or energy model or spirit
Right.
model, you
Right.
are always you're an X factor in yourself. And if you believe in a spirit model or information model, or energy, you're an X factor for other people. In which
Right.
case, they're
You
going to
are.
do everything to shut it down, because change means they have to spend more effort.
Well, it's like I used to try to discuss this with my family.
Right, right.
They thought I was nuts. They still think I'm nuts. That's fine. That's fine. I just don't talk to them about it anymore. Not because I'm worried about what they're going to say back to me. It's just because it's like talking to a brick wall. Why do I want
And
to do that?
I mean, and truly,
Yeah.
that's actually like one of the obstacles, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're insane, right? It's
Right.
literally putting you. If you listen to those external voices, you've
Right.
already destroyed your magic. Like
Right.
they have literally destroyed your magic if you let that have any weight at all in your head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to be a lovable crackpot, I think. So, I mean, I remember years ago the FBI came and chatted with a couple of guys who were in an organization because people in the organization had attempted to characterize themselves as magical terrorists. Well, it came at a time when terrorist was not a term of choice that you'd want to
It would
use.
probably go about as well as it would now.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, here's what the result was. Now, these guys were, in fact, you interviewed one of them. These guys were pretty experienced, old school guys at the time. And the FBI's final assessment was, you guys are just having fun. You're just a bunch of lovable crackpots. You're having fun. You're not hurting anybody. Maybe you're doing some good stuff. It doesn't matter. We're not interested in you. And they left. Now, to me, that was the perfect characterization because that allows me, as that adversarial type, to work surreptitiously.
To end run some of the constraints that otherwise would
Yeah.
be reactive towards you.
Oh, yeah. And capitalizing on circumstances, seeing the flow. That's where the Tao was just such a great philosophy in part to integrate. You know, I think, you know, knowing the flow, and the flow might just be perception. I think that's what it really is. I mean, I think the flow is just perception. But there seems to be this the Tao which cannot be seen. I like that one. That one gives me little tingles because there's this flow that we try to tap into that we don't know. You know what I mean? But that's my mystical considerations. About as far as that goes.
So it's already 7:00.
Got
any projects or podcasts coming up?
Yeah, well, I've been slamming together. I got a new Roadcaster, and it's tough, man. I'm not really super tech at all, and so I wasn't getting. I talked to you about it, Tom, Andrea. I talked to you about it, and I wasn't being able to get my recordings over into the file on the Mac. And I believe now that it was because I didn't format the card.
Yeah. So your podcast is going to return soon.
It is returning. Well, I have several that are in the can that need to get up in the ether. Yeah. Because, you know, my Mondo podcast is usually very socio-political. It's very... And then we have the Two Stone Dudes.
So when are you going to release the new episodes for your podcast that you usually do? Or start recording again, I guess, because you got...
Well, I'm recording. I'm intending to release tomorrow. I've got... we did one more... Yeah, for the Two Stone Dudes, where there was two guys. They started this podcast. They were doing it on Android phones and iPhones. And then they came to me and they said, well, you're a tech guy. And I said, oh, boy, are you guys wrong. And so they came to me and I bought a Roadcaster because I wanted to do my own, too. And so that's how they got started. And we started getting listenership like crazy through Anchor and through Spotify. We were getting crazy listenership. And so one of the guys OD'd, and we had the podcast that's going up is Memorial podcast. But then I'm going back. I think I might get more magical now. I mean, you guys got me fired up, man. And
at least we could do something today, right?
Yeah, you got me fired up, and I'm liking it, you know. And I just, you know, I interviewed Josh Wetzel. And you guys did too. And those are both good. And they were different from each other, which I really like. So I'm going to do more of those. I'm going to try to get a couple of magical celebrities. I'll interview you again. You know,
I used to be a celebrity. I'll get a book out to be a celebrity.
We can fix that.
I'm getting a book out. I'll get a new book out.
He's getting a book out. He's working.
Get the book out, man.
So the podcast, send us the links. We'll put it in the description so people kind of go there.
Sure.
So, Zach, when's our next sponsor workshop? And tell people to get the sponsors, because you know what the sponsors do for us?
They pay for this.
They keep the lights on. So if you're a sponsor, you are helping us keep the lights on. You're keeping us in the show going. You're building the now 1,000-book library that people could walk in and see any occult books. And in fact, you think we're joking about this library?
No.
I want you to show this right here. This is the kind of stuff in our library, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we're getting the...
Oh, those are great. Those books like that. Those are great.
Yeah, we have books like this in our library. Actual original copies. We've got the original copies of lots of stuff. So our library isn't like a fluffy library. It's got the goods.
It's got the goods.
So just for listeners that may not be aware, self-included, what do we do to be a sponsor?
There we go, Zach.
There we go. Well, you can go to resultsoverimage.com/tin sponsor, and then that in itself will specifically get you access to 3 years worth of content. And with the 3 years worth of content, you get rituals, workshops. Tomorrow, we're starting our tarot series. And that is, we are starting with element Earth. The next one in 2 weeks will be of water. So,
Okay.
working through the elemental spectrums.
You're going through the elementals. You know, can I recommend somebody for you to interview?
Sure.
Go for it.
She goes by Sora Velshanis. And a lot of us know her as Shar. Shar wrote a... What's that?
Tell Shar.
Well, she wrote a book on elemental magic.
Yeah.
In fact, Josh wrote...
I know who Shar is. So
yeah, you guys probably have a book.
So we don't have that book, but
we don't have that book, but we'll read.
But we'll get her on.
And she also is finishing her second book right now. So I'd highly recommend getting her on. She's actually a molecular geneticist. She has a PhD in molecular genetics. Yeah. So, if you can get her on.
It's been a long while since I talked to her. So why don't you email me and her and we'll make it happen.
Well,
Mondo.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you about off air. Yeah. She's not one of my fans, but that's okay. She doesn't have to be on your show.
That's true.
And have great content. Yeah. Shar. That's all I would say about anybody. Yeah, you're you, I'm me.
So to just go over that again, it's resultsoverimage.teachable.com /the10 sponsor. Yes, and I will be teaching. I will be teaching because Zach made me.
Because y'all sponsors made me. It goes down the bar.
You all demanded this long tarot thing, but I'm going to tell you, when you're done with my tarot class, you're going to probably be able to get the wind blow. Get the flame to dance.
So let me ask you this, being a little bit counterpoint on that. I mean, I like tarot because it's kind of a romantic notion for me. However, I've often questioned the interpretation. And I sort of come to the conclusion for myself, whereas people, you know how it is when you read tarot, people come to you and you read for them, they go, man, that's right on the money. How many times have you had that happen? And I had no clue.
A lot, yeah.
And yet, when I have other people read me, no.
Well, I have found one thing about this, and I mean, I'll go into a little bit about this. Normal tarot readers, and I'll take the hate mail from this, if they are not magicians, they have the inability to read magicians or other witches. Now, there's lots of tarot readers who can read the cards based on the meaning, but they're not necessarily going into intuition. And even if they can go into intuition, unless they're familiar what magicians do, because the minute a magician sees something or hears about something, they are likely, if they're getting a reading, to affect the outcome more than your normal average bear, as it were, which means you have to read for a magician, witch, a shaman, whatever you want to call it. I have generally found you have to have a very nuanced hand. You have to sort of understand how magic flows and understand what's being said in the cards. More often than not, for a magician, the cards are not telling you the future. They're telling you a warning if you don't do anything. And you have to understand, like, a magician could go or witch could go get up and do something right then and there if they are so inclined to change that. And it's
Sure.
likely if they went to a trance state, they would, right? They would try to start changing it if the reading came out that negative. It's a possibility, right? So how you have to read that is sort of like in line. I usually view that in line with a coaching approach, like a senior magician or senior witch or an elder witch giving a junior witch some ideas. So basically, it's like, yeah, this is what the cards are saying right now. So this is what I recommend. This is what the
Uh-huh.
cards are saying they recommend as the pathway to shift to fulcrum, this to this. Because the cards aren't saying this will be the path. Now that you know what's going on, this is probably not what's going to happen. It could get worse or it could get better. Because this would be, you as a magician, we stared at this. You're either going to sort of accept your own limitations and make it worse at that point, or you have to fight against the reading to make it better. Unless it's a good reading, then you can kind of work with the reading. But either way, you have to have a much more nuanced hand, because the magician actually is a change agent, either in when they move or don't move. When they magic or they don't magic, they're still going to change. By not magicking, they're going to enforce the future in a worse degree than a normal person would. And if they are going to change it, they're already sort of doing that. So I usually try to, when I'm reading someone I know isn't doing witchcraft more, I kind of give this is sort of where the situation lands. But the out of this is the cards are saying, here's the pathway that you need to get an outcome you actually desire from here. Which is why I think people have trouble reading you, Mondo, because they just don't know magic well enough in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and I don't even ask for those kind of readings anymore. I haven't for years because they're just cold reading.
Yeah,
they're just cold reading, and cold reading is good for lay people, I think. I mean, they get a little charge out of it. Hey, you're really right on about that. Well, I can see it in your face, but yeah, I agree with that. The last divination I had outside done was done by some folks that had a whole group of diviners who were very experienced magicians, and they gave me an unbelievable reading. Unbelievable. Yeah. And I was just like, whoa. So that's what I'm looking for.
Because you can see the threats. And that's sort of what we're going to, if you're going to become a sponsor, guess what? That's what we're going to cover.
Okay.
Although I'm going to do a very Kabbalistic set of classes, but not that Kabbalistic, just Kabbalistic enough. Maybe Kabbalistic in the sense that a level of Kabbalistic that Barden was at, maybe.
Well,
and we'll have by the end of the class, I think you'll be able to invoke every single tarot card to create magical changes in your life and to actually interpret the whole tarot as a magical, as a symbol set of the magical universe, or as your whole magical universe. That's what you're going to get for sponsors. I don't think we're going to get through this for it'll take us 3 months to get through the tarot
card. It'll take us 3 months, easy. Yeah. Easy.
Ave.
There you go.
Yeah.
But what we're going to start with is the elements, because you can't actually understand. You cannot actually understand Western ceremonial magic without understanding elements.
No, yeah.
And the problem is it's not an intellectual understanding. So our workshops are not with here's the correspondence of Earth. Our workshops are experiential. They use extreme different modeling of states, shamanic states, using NLP to translate that into a transferable experience. That's what you get if you become a sponsor. And then from there, you can kind of take that experience that you had and apply it to your own rituals. So information's cheap. You can get it anywhere. You go on Google. Experiences, priceless.
Experiential is the way to go. Yeah, Phil Farber has done great shit like that. You know Phil, don't you?
Yeah,
You
we've
know,
had him on the show.
I figured you probably had him on. Yeah. Phil's cool. He's done some cool stuff.
So again, that's what you're going to get for the sponsors. And you never know. The other thing sponsors can do is on Sundays, we just go make stuff and you can ask us questions. We make product for the store.
Oh,
You
that's
could ask us,
cool.
what the hell are you doing? And as long as you take a, well, as Zach would say, an Asian approach to watching, right, Zach? As in, you have to help
Asian is chop wood,
Asian,
carry water, clean
right,
dishes.
right.
Do
You have to
something.
help clean the dishes and do something. You're probably going to get information, right? If you just kind of try to suck it all in and not give anything back while we're making all these dishes and making stuff, well, then, Zach will be like, go away, right? Or I'll be like, go away.
Yeah.
But if you're actually helping clean or carry stuff or helping us make it, chop wood, carry water, inevitably, you're going to ask questions. Are we going to say, buzzer off? No, we're going to be like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. This is how you make this, or this is how you actually put the energy in, or this is how you make the powder work, or this is all this. The last time we had a couple people, we made Peaceful Home, and they were amazed when they actually saw what we did. And they actually got blessings in the middle of us doing this. So the sponsors were here. There was a couple of sponsors there. People realize, I'm a voodoo priest, and apparently I got possessed, and they got blessings that had real impact on their lives just because they showed up as a sponsor and were helping carry wood and chop wood and carry water. There you go. That's what sponsors get access to, is all that kind of stuff.
That's good.
So anything else you'd like to add, Zach? Besides
Well,
the URL again?
we got the sponsorship. We're also going to be in Hamilton, Toronto Pagan Pride. So
Correct.
That's going to be September 11th
and we'll be
September 24th.
And at Hamilton, we will be doing readings, actual readings, the type that Mondo was describing, where we, try to actually not do cold readings. And we'll be doing healings out in the park. And we'll have some of the products that we've made at Hamilton. There's a lot of love for both me and Zach in Hamilton. So we're looking forward
to showing up. We're going forward with it.
And we'll be in Toronto Pagan Pride as well, which is
24th.
What did you say the name of the organization was?
It's a city.
Oh,
it's Hamilton.
Yeah. But is there a festival or something you're talking about?
Pagan Pride.
Pagan Pride. Okay, so yeah, we have those. Yeah.
We're vending and we're presenting, and the show's broadcasting live from there.
Yep.
We might try to broadcast live from Toronto Pagan Pride. We're still working it out. I don't think we're going to vend in Toronto Pagan Pride, but we might. We're still working that out. We might. But we're certainly going to vend in Hamilton, where, like I said, both me and Zach, there's a lot of love in the city. We know a lot of our fans in Canada are coming the hour-and-a-half drive to see us in Toronto. So we know, we are aware that
Hammertown love.
It has a lot of love for us. So we'll see you all there. Now, that said, Hammertown might have a lot of love for us, but we're still going to wear masks, so don't get offended.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you.
With that, I'd like to wish everyone stay safe. We say that every show. There's still a sort of a weird pandemic going on, even though we might not be able to tell that. Stay safe, stay well. Reach out for your own happiness. And we will see you next week. Who do we have next week?
We got Annabelle Wen.
Right.
With the holistic tarot.
Yep, tarot. But she also has some interesting stuff on Taoist sigils.
Taoist sigils and, talisman magic.
Taoist talisman magic. Paper sigils. Very good. Thanks for coming on the show, Mondo. Give us a second. You don't have to do anything. The stream will just take us on out.
Okay. Thanks.
Great.
All right.
I got to remake the end, but that's okay. You saw what
Yes,
I
we're
ended
still
up
live and recording, by the way.
doing. It was supposed to end the stream.
It has not. Let's try this
No,
again.